You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Let's play a little game of Would You Rather, School Counselor Edition. Okay, would you rather spend your weekend planning a group or spend your afternoon sitting in irrelevant PD? Yikes. Or would you rather be the only counselor with no one to collaborate with, or to spend hours searching online for engaging activities? All of these options are pretty bad, right? But unfortunately, they're all too real. But what if I told you I had a solution for you? What if I told you I had access to hundreds of school counseling lessons, groups, and activities, counselor-specific trainings on the topics you need most, and a community of like-minded school counselors to support you? You would say, yes, please. Well, that is what Impact is all about. Impact is my monthly membership for school counselors, and it helps you with all of these things. You get access to hundreds of resources. That's unlimited free downloads. Log in and get what you need right away to every single resource that's in my store. We add new resources each and every month. We're adding a new middle school and elementary resource each month, and some of these are bonus Impact exclusives, meaning that you can get resources just for members. You can request resources that you need and easily search so you can find exactly what you're looking for. And let's talk about the trainings, counselor-specific trainings on the topics you need most. We do these each and every month as part of our Coffee with the Counselor series. Impact members get to join for absolutely free. You earn PD certificates and you get exclusive access to members-only things like the Ultimate Small Group Experience and our Summer Summit Conference. And the community. Y'all, this is possibly my favorite part of Impact. I so look forward to jumping on these calls, to getting to know counselors who are similar to me and also completely different. It's so fun to hear from your experiences and your challenges, and everyone brings a unique perspective to the table. We have an exclusive online community, and we even have a cool app where you can chat with other counselors in these community circles. We have our monthly calls, like I mentioned, twice a month, and we share wins, troubleshoot tough cases, and just talk about what it's like to be a counselor, because so often we're on our own island at our school sites. So if any of that sounds like it's for you, I would love to see you inside Impact. Go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/impact to solve all of your counselor problems. And I have a special offer for my listeners. Use code POD at checkout to save 10% off your first month. Okay, let's go to today's episode. Hey there, thanks for listening to another episode of School Counseling Simplified. Today I want to share with you some school counseling systems for success. And one of my favorite systems for success is the Counseling Hub. The Counseling Hub is made up of two parts, the Counseling Caseload and the Counseling Log, two spreadsheets that I find invaluable, and I think you will too. All right, so let's go to the show where I'm going to break it down for you. First up, Counseling Hub. So there's two parts of the Counseling Hub. There's the Counseling Caseload and there's the Counseling Log. So I'm going to break it down by each one, and then we can talk about the hub together. So here is an example of a Counseling Caseload. So I use Google Sheets. I love using Google Sheets. You could also use an Excel sheet. I believe my first one that I created, I did an Excel sheet, but then I realized that I love the fact that Google Sheets, you can't really lose them. They're like in the cloud, and you can, share them, access them across different devices. So it makes it way better, especially if something happens to your computer, or, if you have a school computer and a personal computer and you're trying to access back and forth. But a counseling caseload is basically students who are on your weekly schedule. So I want you to think about your small groups and your individual students. So if you look at the spreadsheet here, it's going to do a few things. It's going to share some information about these kids, some identifying information, and then it's going to share kind of a checklist, order of events per se. So for example, I have Britney Spears. Free Britney is the first one, and then her name, teacher name, grade level, area of need. So area of need is going to be the topic that you're seeing them for in counseling. And then the counseling type. So this is where you're going to specify if they are individual or group. Now you may notice I have some colors here, and that's because I like to color code my groups. So as students are being, referred to or added to your caseload, you're going to write their name here. So that's why some of the colors are separated. So for example, this growing minds growth mindset group, let's say I got these 3 referrals and I decided to make a group. Well, then a couple weeks later, someone, gets referred, or a new student comes and they're going to be a good fit. That's why they're name is down here. It's not right in order, but you don't need to readjust your whole spreadsheet, just color coordinate them. So at a glance, you can see, oh, look, I have 4 students in that growth mindset group, or I have 3 students in that blooming friendships group. And then the next one is if they've received a referral. So who you received the referral from. So you're seeing them for a reason. Is that because their parent recommended them, the principal, maybe they self-referred, maybe their teacher recommended them? I like to make a note of that. Also, I forgot to mention with the counseling type, if sometimes you'll see students, so for example, I have Ariana Grande here at the bottom. Sometimes you'll see students individually and in a group. I've definitely done that before. So I do have her name on here twice so I can keep her with the group, but then also individually as well. Because as you can see, I'm seeing her for 2 different topics. But I did indicate this with a star and asterisk beside her name. That way, if I'm going back later and I'm trying to count, collect some data and count the number of services I've provided or the number of students served, I won't double count her, if that makes sense. And then I have here, if I've contacted the parent. So I always like to let the parent know, hey, services are about to start. Here's the permission slip. So that goes on to the next one, send a permission slip. And then the next one is received a permission slip. Off screen here, it got cut off, but there's a couple more columns I include. One is to chat with the teacher about the ideal time. So you want to make sure that you're finding a time to schedule them. And then finally, if you've actually scheduled the session. So that's kind of your checklist that you're going through. So I love keeping this on my computer. So at any point, I know I have a status update on the student. So if the principal's like, hey, are you seeing so-and-so? I'm like, oh, yeah, we've already contacted the parent. We're just waiting to get that permission slip back. Or I've got the permission slip back. We're waiting to hear back from the teacher to schedule sessions. This way, students don't fall through the cracks, because so often you'll get stuck in one of these points. You may have received the permission slip and reached out to the teacher, but then you get busy with something else. The teacher didn't get back to you, and you're thinking, oh no, I'm waiting to hear back from this teacher. I never scheduled them, and they just slipped through the cracks. The group's already started, and that kiddo didn't get in it in time. So that's the purpose of this caseload, is to stay super organized, because I used to have a manila folder, right by my desk. I would throw all the permission slips in there, but they weren't even alphabetized, or they weren't even in the order I received them. And so it gets very tricky. So you could even get fancier than this. I mean, you could insert images under the permission slip, or like a link to a file of a Google Drive. So you could scan these, or if you have a digital permission slip, that way you can access it right there. You could keep it all digital, all streamlined. And instead of these yeses, if you see in the top right here, I've done a checkbox. So you can always do, insert checkbox instead of typing yes or no. You could do checkboxes. So a few different options for you there. Now, the second part of the counseling hub is the counseling log. So the counseling log is where you're going to do a daily summary of services provided, or of the students that you've seen that day. So I like to break it down by month at the bottom, and then by week on the actual screen. So you can see there, the pink lines indicate in between weeks. So I have the dates, the student, and then the area of need. So again, that's the same area of need, counseling type, all that's the same. You could put teacher here as well. I don't really find it necessary, because remember, you have that info on your caseload spreadsheet. This is just tracking who they are, why you're seeing them, how you saw them, the counseling type, and then for how long you saw them. So even if they're on your schedule for 30 minutes, for example, individual kiddos, I usually schedule for 30-minute chunks. But sometimes I only see them for 20 minutes, because maybe 10 minutes, I walked to pick them up from their classroom, and then they had to go to the bathroom on the way. Or maybe, I had one kid before them, the group ran over or something, because we were doing a cut and paste activity and we had to clean up our supplies. Just because you have them on your calendar for 30 minutes doesn't mean you're actually seeing them for 30 minutes. And you may be thinking, well, why does the actual minute matter? And I believe it matters because you can then use this to collect data of services provided to show in like an end of the year report, or to show to your admin, like I, spent this many minutes with individual counseling students. Now here's the part where it's different, than the caseload, because you might be thinking this looks kind of similar, but this is where we're tracking what we did with that student. So strategies used. This is the name of the activity that you did. So maybe you read a book with them, or maybe you did a craft with them, or played some boom cards with them, or a board game. Write that down. Then in the notes section, this is optional, but maybe you want to write, a little note or comment about the student's affect, or if they had something significant happen. Now, you do want to keep in mind confidentiality. I like to keep this kind of brief. We're not writing a novel about everything the kids shared with you in the session, but it may be something like they seemed really upset when they arrived to group, or maybe they, are staying at dad's this weekend, or just something contextual. And then I have a parent communication column, and that's where you're going to dock any communication that occurred during that week. So if you had a parent phone call or a parent meeting. So let's take a look at the first one here. So I have the date as June 2nd, because that's when I saw the student, and then I write what we worked on. But if you see on June 3rd, Blake's mom returned a psych evaluation. So maybe he went and had a psych evaluation done, and she shared the results with us. So, of course, these are all fictional examples. I have that. Now, her date's the 3rd, but I didn't make a new column because she still goes with that student, with Blake, but it's during that same week. Now, if this had occurred the next week, I wouldn't write it here. I would write it with the next week. So that's kind of how you would organize the parent communication. And of course, this is up to you. This is just a system that's worked well for me, but you can completely modify this to fit your own needs. So the counseling log, the reason we want to do this is so we can track our services provided. So we can use it for data. We can also use it for attendance to know how many times you met with a student. Oh, they didn't come this week. And we can also use it to keep track of what we did with them. Because if you're like me, you're probably seeing a lot of kiddos, and it gets confusing. You don't remember what you did with them. You might need to write it down. So you can say, oh, we worked on, and you can even get specific, like first 3 pages of self-regulation journal. So then when they come in, oh, we're going to start with page 4. So that's a way that you can kind of keep track of what you did with them. But this is just a nice way to stay organized. So that's the spreadsheet, caseload spreadsheet, and the counseling log spreadsheet, but now the counseling hub. So this is exciting. You're going to combine the two to form a counseling hub. And how you would do that is if you look on the bottom here where I've circled in yellow, you'll have tabs at the bottom that you can toggle between to show, oh, here's my caseload, here's my log, because you'll likely be flipping back and forth between these. You can just leave this up on your computer all day. And then, as a kiddo leaves, you type in their info on the log. As you get a permission slip turned in, you do a little check mark. This is how you can just stay organized and on top of it throughout the day. Something you do want to keep in mind, though, if you see the September 2021 at the top there, on the counseling log, on the bottom tabs, I had the months. So because they're sharing this now, you would need one of these per month. Or unless you're someone who's just cool with having like a really long, like the whole school year in one thing, and you just keep scrolling. So that's an option too.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.